Okay, so in this video, we're not going to be looking so much at how to represent your ideas, more how to draw parts for manufacturing. So in the same way as this drawing here that we created for your base, we could right-click on Sketch 1, save as a DXF, and export that to the laser cutter to cut out the acrylic pieces. We're going to do something similar for the neoprene. Now, the one thing that's going to be really important for you to understand or check on your drawing is what these dimensions here are. Okay, we talked earlier on and we said, well, that one was 72 and this one was also 72, I think, in this case. But obviously, it's going to vary where you've actually made your product. Yours may be larger, it may be smaller, and it may not even be square, of course. You might have a measurement where this is 72 and this one is gosh, I don't know, 82, let's say, for argument's sake. So you've got a rectangle, but you've got one side 72, 82, 72, 82. We'll use those sizes and we'll work with that as we do the next part. So let's assume it's not square. You've measured your pieces, you've measured this inside piece, and you've got 72 across here, and you've got 82 here. Now, if that's 72, we've already said that's 76. If that's 82, that's 86. So we're going to find the midpoint between those. Well, the midpoint between 82 and 86 is 84, and the midpoint between 72 and 76 is 74. So when we go to draw our polypropylene, I'm going to do 74, then 84, then 74, then 84. Okay, so we're going to create a new drawing. We're going to come up to here and we're going to obviously save it, and we're going to call this John Wilson polypropylene shade, and make sure we're going into a normal place. Click save. So again, it's a rectangle essentially that we're starting with if it's a square shape. So I'm going to click on one of these faces. Again, I'm going to go for the plan view. And we just said we were going to do 74 on one side and 84 on the other. So as I drag this out, this blue box is asking for the height, which is 90. Press tab, and the next blue box is asking for the width, which is going to be 74. Click 74 and boom, there we go. When we then go to do the next piece, we're going to start with another rectangle, and this time as we pull it out, it's going to be 90, same height, they're always going to be 90 high. Tab, 84. Okay, so we said let's assume, you know, in this case it's not a square, so it's 74, 84, 74, 84 as it works its way across. So there's our first two panels. Now, when you move sort of on from this, obviously you've got to think about how you want it to look. So you can do a whole range of things here. I'm going to do something very, very simple. I'm going to put in a center line where I get my little green triangle showing up and pop that in there. And then I'm going to put a center line across this one as well and do that. In fact, I might just as well carry on my centre line across there and find my centre line down there. If you want, you can always select those lines and just press the X key on your keyboard, and they will show up as construction lines. If you think that that dimension line there is getting a bit in the way, you can select it and delete it. Okay, because it's only a repeat of that one, isn't it? 90 millimeters. So there you go. There's my pieces. I don't know why that one's gone red, but hey, that's a bit of a mystery. Anyway, let's take a rectangle in this case. So I'm going to come to my sketch tool, and I'm going to go to the rectangle tool that asks for, do you know, I'm going to let you have a play around with these circle and rectangle patterns. What I'm going to do So I'm going to press C for circle. I'm going to use that center point there, and something fairly small, 6 millimeters. There you go. And I'm going to do the same on that one and make that 6 millimeters. There we go. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to draw that 6 millimeter circle somewhere further up on that line. Okay, so it doesn't massively matter what the position is here. I'm going to go 6 and click OK. Now that's a point. Do ideally want it to be level with this side. So if I do a line straight across there as well and escape that, then that's just going to help me put that at the same place, 6 millimeters bump. And then you can get rid of that line. It's done its job. Okay. So here's a center and here's a circle. And what we can do is we can do a circular pattern. First thing it asks us to do is select the object, which is going to be that one. Then it asks us to select the center point, which is going to be that one. And then it asks us how many repeats of that do we want. So I'm just going to do 8 and click OK. All right. I'm going to do the same on the other one. Now you might be wondering, well, why can't you do them both at the same time? The reason you can't do them both at the same time is because obviously they have different centers. So that one has got to be selected for those, and then have the same number, or maybe you don't, maybe you want alternate, different numbers, 6 on one, 8 on the other, I don't know. There you go. So there's a simple pattern. Now just think about how much material you're going to cut away here. If you cut too much, you're going to get an awful lot of light coming through it, so it's not really going to shade the candle very much. And also, the more you cut away, the weaker the material gets, of course. So there you go. There's my short side, there's my long side, 74, 84. But of course there's 2 of each of those. So I'm going to select all of that. Sorry, let's just try and select around all of that. And then we will Command C and Command V. That hasn't selected everything, has it? Let's go to my select tool. Let's do window selection. Let's just check what we're selecting. Select priority, select tool, select filters. That's selecting everything. So it should be a window selection. Let's try again. Let's see what happens. That's a window. There you go. That's better. So let's drag all the way around that. Command C, Command V, and I'm going to slide that along that plane. Now you'll notice that because it's snapping to the grid, it's either going not far enough or going slightly too far. It's saying that it's moved it in our dialog box here 160 millimeters, but if I add up 84 and 74, that would give me 100 and what would it be? 158, which is 2 millimeters less than that. And you can see there's a tiny little gap there. So if I just, before I do anything too drastic like click OK, if I change that to 158, it should now sit directly on top of there. Now I can press enter and I've got 4 surfaces. Okay. Once you've done that, it's that line again, we'll delete that dimension line. Once you've done that, we can just do a little bit of tidying up of this. Now you're going to need to add a 20 millimeter overlap on the end, or at least 15, but I think 20 is probably better. So I'm going to pull this out here and I'm going to draw a box that is 20 by 90. Okay, that's going to be where the 2 ends meet, and I need to have an actual overlap. They can't just meet as 2 corners. So there you go. That's the little flap or tab that's going to join everything back together. Now at this point, I'm actually going to use my T tool, T for trim, And we're going to go in, before we do that maybe, let's delete these center lines. We'll just select them and delete them, select and delete. Tidy everything up a little bit, select and delete, select and delete. And what we're then going to do is we're going to use our tab tool, sorry, not tab tool, our trim tool to, if you like, separate parts of our drawing. At the moment on, for example, this panel here, this is made up of one boundary. This is made up of another boundary. This is made up, okay? So we want to break those boundaries up so the laser cutter can handle everything. So I'm going to press T for trim and trim away those lines there. Now you'll notice I'm having to do it twice. The reason I'm having to do it twice is because where we've overlapped those lines, there is effectively the left-hand side of one rectangle and the right-hand side of another. Now, having done that, we're now in a place to redraw those lines, which seems a bit odd. Why delete them just to redraw them? Well, because we want them to be drawn as separate entities, not as part of that bigger square. So you can use the points that were already in there from last time and just make sure it's snapping to that point. Draw your lines in there. And the final thing is you're going to need to put some circles in the end. The circles want to be 3 millimeters in diameter, and the position of them needs to be the same on both ends. If we take our circle tool and let's zoom in and have a look up here. So, oops, that's a bit too zoomed in. So if I use my circle tool, I can see that that is in the center of my 20 millimeter piece here. So I'm going to come up there and into there. So what am I? 15 millimeters up. I know that because of the sizes of those squares are all 5, those grid squares. And I'm going to put in a size of 3.5 millimeters. I'm going to come down 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to do the same there, 3.5 millimeters. Okay. Then I'm going to come across to the opposite end, and I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to press my circle tool, and I'm going to come up 3.5 millimeters. Okay, press enter, and on the same line, 1, 2, 3 grid squares, so 15 millimeters, 3.5, enter, enter. Now, the only thing I haven't checked is are the holes in the same positions both ends. If I zoom in down here, press my D tool, I should be able to click that and click on that edge, and it will tell me I'm 10 millimeters in that direction. Okay. It should also tell me that I'm 10 millimeters from there to there, because the whole thing was 20 millimeters wide. So I just want to scoot across to the far side, and before I cut this out, be absolutely certain that these are also 10 millimeters from the end. Okay. Now this 10 millimeter measurement, there you go, that's actually 11. So that's not going to work. I need to type that into 10 and press enter, enter, there you go. This is only going to work, it's only going to be 10 millimeters if you've made the flap at the far end, the tab at the far end, 20. And put your pieces at the other end in the center of that 10 millimeters, just move that along. And there you go. That then should be your polypropylene piece ready for cutting. The last thing to do, obviously just click save and save, yep, here. And the last thing is to change it into the file format that the laser cutter understands. You don't need to worry about deleting any of these bits, okay. The dimensions don't form part of your drawing. do just be careful with this. Obviously what you don't want is those holes are going to connect up with those holes. This flap here is going to end up sitting to the right hand side of that. So when you're drawing these cutouts here, I don't make them spread too close to the edges. I would keep them a good 20 millimeters away. Anyway, onto your sketches. If you click your little button there, right click, save as DXF, and this one we're going to call John Wilson polypropylene for cutting in white. Okay, make sure you know you're saving it onto your desktop or wherever it happens to be. That can then be emailed to me and we'll cut it out on the laser cutter for you. Okay, and that should be that